I still remember that night as if it happened only yesterday. My heart was pounding against my chest. My palms were sweaty, and my throat felt tight. I had just come home from a long day at work, exhausted but still hopeful for some warmth and kindness at home. Instead, I walked into the living room where my parents and my brother were sitting together, laughing and planning his wedding. Their eyes lit up when they saw him, but when their gaze shifted to me, it was as if the light dimmed, and I suddenly became invisible. I forced a smile, trying to be part of their joy, but before I could even sit down, my mother looked at me and said the words that cut through me like a knife. On your brother's wedding day, it's better if you're not there. She laughed as if it was a harmless joke, and my father nodded in agreement, but I could feel the venom in their words. My brother didn't even try to defend me. He just looked away, pretending he hadn't heard anything. My heart sank. I wanted to scream, to ask them why they always compared me to him, why I was never enough, why I was always the shadow in the corner of their lives while my brother was their golden child. But instead, I stayed silent, because deep inside I was used to it. For as long as I could remember, I had been the lesser one, the less smart, the less successful, the less loved. Every achievement I brought home was overshadowed by my brother's accomplishments. If I scored well, my parents would say, "Your brother did better at your age." If I tried to dress nicely, they would say, "Why can't you look as presentable as your brother?" Even when I cooked or cleaned, it was always your brother's wife will be better at this one day. But this humiliation about not being wanted at his wedding was the breaking point. That night, when I went to my room, I collapsed onto my bed, tears soaking my pillow. I felt like an outsider in my own family. My mind swirled with questions. Why wasn't I good enough? Why did my own parents mock me? Why did they never see me for who I was? Only for who I wasn't. The days leading up to the wedding were unbearable. The house was filled with music, laughter, decorations, and relatives coming in and out. I should have felt part of the celebration, but instead, I felt like a ghost haunting the place. Everyone's attention was on my brother, and whenever I tried to help, my parents would push me aside. "You'll mess it up," they'd say. "Just stay out of the way." Every word felt like another slap to my face. I spent hours alone in my room, listening to the sounds of joy outside while drowning in my sorrow inside. There were moments I considered running away completely, disappearing from their lives forever. But then I thought, if I leave now, I'll only prove them right. They'll always say I wasn't strong enough, that I wasn't worthy. So I made a decision. If they didn't want me at the wedding, I wouldn't go, not out of shame, but out of choice. But I would also not sit quietly in the shadows anymore. I would start living for myself, building a life where my worth wasn't measured by their constant comparisons. On the day of the wedding, I woke up early. I could hear the chaos of preparation, the laughter of guests, the music in the air, but I stayed in my room. I got dressed, not in festive clothes, but in simple, neat attire. I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, "You are enough." For the first time, I believed it. As the family left for the wedding venue, my parents barely glanced at me. My mother said, under her breath, "Better this way," and walked out with a smile on her face. That hurt, but instead of letting it break me, I let it fuel me. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began working on the project I had been secretly building for months. A small business idea I had kept to myself because I knew no one in my family would take it seriously. While the wedding celebrations went on, I poured my entire soul into that project. Day after day, night after night, I worked. I taught myself skills, built connections online, and slowly began turning my dream into reality. At first, it was small, barely noticeable. But soon, orders began to come in. Clients appreciated my work. People who didn't even know me saw value in me, something my own parents had never acknowledged. Months passed, and my business began to grow. For the first time in my life, I was independent, not just financially, but emotionally. I no longer craved my parents' approval. I no longer felt like I had to compete with my brother. I was carving my own path, one step at a time. Then, one day, out of nowhere, my mother called me. Her voice was hesitant, almost trembling. She said, "Your father and I are proud of you." I almost laughed bitterly, because where was that pride when I needed it most? But instead, I stayed calm. I told her, "I didn't do it for you, I did it for me." And for the first time in my life, I felt free. My brother's marriage, ironically, began to crumble. The couple faced issues, constant fights, and eventually separation. My parents, who had once mocked me and told me to stay away, now looked at me with different eyes. They saw resilience in me, strength in me, success in me. But by then, I had learned something powerful. I didn't need their validation anymore. I still visit them, yes. I still show respect, because that's who I am. But I no longer let their words define me. I know my worth, I know my path, and I know that sometimes rejection is just a redirection towards something greater. So if you've ever been mocked, belittled, or pushed aside by the very people who were supposed to love you most, remember this: your value does not come from their approval. It comes from the fire within you, from the determination to rise above, from the courage to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. Because sometimes being told it's better if you're not there is the greatest gift, an opportunity to build a life where you don't just belong, but thrive.